All right, today we're going to talk about separation anxiety. This is going to be the most comprehensive method to deal with separation anxiety that you're going to hear. I've been dealing with separation anxiety since I started my business 11 years ago. It's a super common problem, and it's also complicated. And also, there's a lot of information on the internet that is all over the place. And I don't think the information puts the emphasis on the right solution. So they'll say like 10 things to do when really 80% of the solution is in two things. Really, in my opinion, three of those things. So I call them the big three. We'll get into that in a minute. So there's mild, medium, and severe separation anxiety. Mild would be my puppy whines and whines a little bit and barks a little bit when I leave. That's pretty normal. That's mild. My dog did that. Most dogs do that when they're puppies. Mild, there was a client in here just yesterday talking about mild, would be the dog scratches at the door, the dog paces, the dog maybe even does a little bit of damage. And then severe would be, and I've dealt with this many times, chewing through walls, jumping through windows. I had a dog jump off second story balcony. That's severe. Major damage would be severe separation anxiety, foaming at the mouth the whole time you're gone. So we're going to jump into solutions because that's what you're looking for, and that's what we're here to deliver. So we're going to start with what I call the big three. So there's three main things to deal with separation anxiety. There's all these other things you'll see on the internet: thunder vests, jiggle your keys when you're not leaving, scents or calming treats. Those might solve 5% of it. 5% is nothing. We need to solve 80% of it or 100% of it. So the big three. Number one in the big three is chew toys, okay? I don't mean toys, squeaky toys, rope toys, but chewies. So there's three main chew toys. I'm going to do the chew toy talk on YouTube at one point. I'll give you a very brief one. So there's three things that make a good chewy. One is reinforcing. It's got to be reinforcing. They have to love it. Have to love it. Number two would be long-lasting. If you're dealing with separation anxiety, you can't have them chew on something for 2 minutes and then be done with it. And three, it has to be safe. If you're going to leave your dog with something, it's got to, they can't be injured by it. They can't choke on it, okay? That'll all be in my chew toy talk later on. So here's the three best chew toys that fit that bill. And if you go to a pet store, you're going to see all this stuff. I'm telling you. And you can use whatever is safe, reinforcing, long-lasting, but generally speaking, these are the ones. So I'm going to start with what I think is the best, and that is a marrow bone. Okay? It's a cow femur. Is it safe? Absolutely, it's safe. People are like, well, can't they chew up the bone? No, this is a half-inch raw bone. I saw one break after like 2 years. Like they'd last, okay? It is filled with marrow. What's in marrow? It's fat, it's protein, it's the greatest stuff ever. Dogs love this thing, generally speaking, and we're going to get in if your dog doesn't like it. Okay, so a marrow bone. Is it safe? Yes. Is it reinforcing? Yes. Is it long-lasting? Yes. Now, for my Doberman, I would get them about 4 inches. This is about 1.5 to 2 inches. Medium, small dog, this is the size you want. Bosco dog, my dog, about 4 inches. Okay? So, this is one thing. Second, what I call food-filled frozen Kong. Take a Kong, fill it with wet food, freeze it. Is it safe? Yeah, most dogs can't chew up a Kong. Is it reinforcing? It's wet food. Do they like wet food? Is it long-lasting? Yes, it's frozen. People always go, well, I put peanut butter in it. Great. One, I give my dog 3 of these every time I left, or 2. Do I want to give my dog that much peanut butter? Probably not. How about just some good quality wet food? And lastly would be a bully stick. Bully stick is probably third on the list. It's pretty long. And by the way, long-lasting is 45 minutes. For a large dog. I'm not talking something, there's nothing that is reinforcing that they're going to chew on for 2 hours. There's no product out there. So bully stick, 45 minutes, about 30 minutes, probably 40 minutes. But my dog would go through this in like 20, 30 minutes. That's good. So marrowbone, bully stick. Now, here's where we buy bully sticks. Costco. Costco has by far the best bully sticks. I just bought this at a local pet store. It was $8. You go to Costco, they sell 15 of them for $30, and they're fresher and they're bigger than this. $2 a piece. Okay? All right, so what do you do with these? Here's what you do. When you're home, once you give this to your dog, and you're home, and he goes, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And you give this, and he goes, oh, okay, I kind of like this. And you give this, and he goes, I don't really like this. Here's your thing, okay? Then you start giving it to them when you leave. And what will happen generally with these chew toys is, except for like really severe separation anxiety, which most people don't have that, most people have moderate, these things, and by the way, give all three, who cares when you leave? These things will dogs carry energy in their head, the muscles in their head down to their jaws. And if you give them something they like, they sit there and they chew and they lick and it takes a lot of energy out of them. And so basically, if you give them this, they'll work on it, and then they often get done and they go, I could go chew on the blinds, I could go scratch on the floor, but they often don't. And if you think about it, separation anxiety, the greatest thing in the world just walked out the door. That's you. Mom left, life isn't worth living, so you have to be like, yeah, I left, and now you're gonna get the greatest thing ever, the two greatest things ever, in comparison, not as great as Mom, but close. Okay, so you have to reinforce them when you leave. This is one of the only ways to do that. All right, number 2 would be exercise before you go. How much exercise? So you gotta walk. You gotta walk your dog. Okay, you gotta get some of that pent up energy out. My exercise talk, really briefly, is in a week you should be walking your dog every day for a mile, and you should be doing 2 times a week of what I call opening up. Dog wrestling with the dog. Take your dog to doggy daycare, Camp Run 'em Up. That's the daycare I'm the trainer for. Throwing a ball in a field. Everyone will go, oh yeah, my dog runs around the backyard like a crazy person. He gets a ton of exercise. That's not enough. And it's in your backyard, so it's boring. It needs to be out of the house, these things. So 5 to 7 walks a week, and 2 times the dog opening up, wrestling, using those fast twitch muscles. So walk before you go is number 2. Some exercise before you go. Get some of that energy out. All right. And number 3 would be leaving for progressively longer periods of time. So basically, here's what you're going to do. You're going to test out all these chew toys. Then you're going to say, all right, you love the marrow bone. Here's the marrow bone, and I'm going to walk around the block. And you're going to come back. You can also set up a camera. That's a whole thing. But that's what I do when I go to people's homes. But you walk around the block, and you come back, and you notice that the dog is still working on this. You're headed in the right direction if that's the case. Because separation anxiety is often something called a superstitious behavior. What is a superstitious behavior? It's a behavior that's accidentally reinforced. So basically, what happens with separation anxiety, your puppy's whining, and you go to work, and then you walk in because you forgot your keys, and the puppy goes, my whining got her home. No, your whining didn't get her home. You just happened to come back home. But you reinforce the whining. The dog actually thought that's what got you home. And then this progressively happens, and it gets worse and worse, and you occasionally forget your keys. You occasionally walk in the door when they happen to be whining or barking, and they go, that got her home. That's not always the case, but it's sometimes the case. Superstitious behaviors, you'll see those in life. You actually see them in animal training a lot, where you reinforce an animal for doing one thing, but you miss that they're, in a dolphin or a whale, their tail flicked up when you reinforced a jump, and the whale thought, oh, it's the tail flip they reinforced. But that's not the case. So that's superstitious behavior, and that's not commonly thought of when dealing with separation anxiety, because you got to understand why this stuff happens too. All right, so progressively leaving for longer periods of time. So you give them this, 2 of these, 3 of these, whatever, and you walk around the block, and you go, great, they were into it. And they go, wow, I was chewing on this bully stick, and then the lady came back inside. And so they go, I don't need to whine and bark. And they're getting reinforced when you're gone with this. So then you go to the store for 20 minutes. You come back in, they're still chewing on it. This is how you fix separation anxiety, okay? Now, you have to go to work. I get that. Most people can't take a week off to do this whole process. So there are days when you just have to go to work. Those days, I would just go nuts with this stuff. I'd go nuts with the walk in the morning. Then I would give him, like when I was raising my dog, he never had separation anxiety, but I didn't want him to get it. So I would give him all of this stuff. And then basically he'd come home, I'd come home and he'd be like, I've been working all day. Now, if your dog is not into this, you have to get them into this. I would reduce their base diet. Let's say, so a large dog, 75, 80 pound, 2-year-old dog eats about 4 cups of kibble a day. I would instantly drop it a half a cup. And then it takes a base decrease about 4 days to kick in. So you're not gonna really see hunger kick in for about 3 to 4 days. So 3 to 4 days later, so they're not into this. You drop their base diet, half a cup. 4 days later, 3 days later, you give them this, oh, they're into it when I'm home. Now we're somewhere. Okay, they're still not into it. I would drop their base diet another half a cup. Plus, if you think about it, once they're eating this stuff, they're getting food. So I drop their to about 3 cups. Now, I'm not willing to like drop it down to 2 cups or something. So if you can't get it at that point, you need to call me. But you got to get them into this thing. Okay? All right. So there's some other things that are also important. We're not going to get into medication. Okay? You got to try this other stuff before you get into medication. That is a talk that sometimes needs to be had, but don't worry about that right now. If you do this right, you probably won't need it. There's other things. Thunder vests. You've probably seen those. It's just clothing. You can buy an actual sweater and it acts the same as a thunder vest. But here's what I think about thunder vests. If you have a husky that has all this hair, he doesn't need a thunder vest. So clothes help dogs when they feel naked to the world. They're skinny and they have no hair. Think about how they feel. They kind of feel like there's nothing enveloping them. They're not swaddled at all. I'm a fan of thunder vest or sweaters for those dogs. That might help them feel a little more like enveloped and taken care of. The other thing is a crate. The crate thing is hard because it takes a lot of work to do and you still have to go to work. And you can't put them in a crate and go, let's see how this goes, because they might kill themselves. So you'd rather your dog tear up your house a little bit than injure themselves while you're at work. So don't worry too much about the crate. You can start the crate training process. It's not that hard. You basically give all this good stuff in their crate while you're home. Start that process. But crates are generally not the answer to separation anxiety, just because most dogs can get out of them and they will hurt themselves on them. So remember, the big 3. If you do the big 3, what are the big 3? Chew toys, exercise before you go, and slowly leaving for longer periods of time. And in those periods of time that you're leaving, they are working on something and getting reinforced for working. Getting reinforced when you're gone. All right. That's separation anxiety in a nutshell. If you follow that, 80% of the people watching this will be able to solve their separation anxiety. The other 20%, the severe folks, that's a little different, but this will solve most separation anxieties.